Hello, everyone. Once again, it's Brian with Spiritual Kings. Thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. At this time, I would like to do another overview video of a video that I watched this morning with the great C.S. Lewis. For those of you who don't know C.S. Lewis, C.S. Lewis, excuse me, was an Irishman from Belfast, Northern Ireland. He was around in the 1900s. He has since passed away a long time ago, but he was a great theologian. He was basically a teacher and professor and of Christian theology. He was once an atheist at early point of his life, and then he became a Christian around the age of 40. Went on to become one of the more influential authors, speakers, and theologians of his time. He's studied in many Christian circles, churches, universities, and he's just and also even secular places in the world. He's a great thinker, very much a great just a great man of Christian theology. Contributed so many things to Christianity. Wrote the book Mere Christianity, amongst other books. Just a very deep thinker and a very profound thinker, and really always enjoy listening to C.S. Lewis. He's been a very positive impact on my life. I've read some of his books, and I've listened to a lot of his stuff online. In this particular video, he talks about kindness and how kindness can hurt you, and how kindness is often misconstrued. And I've been thinking things like this for a long time, but I never know how to articulate it quite as good as someone he can. So I watched this video this morning, and I just had to say, I had to do an overview. I'm like, this is so true. So I want us to watch this video so we can kind of all get a little clarity on what true kindness is and how to be kind to yourself and not just be a pushover, okay? Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and things that are very misconstrued with kindness. So I'm going to make comments as we go along here. It's a 14-minute video, plus I'm doing my commentary, so it's probably about a 20-minute video or so. But I'm going to make my comments as we go along, and I'll have some closing remarks here. So I'm going to hit play here, and we'll get started.
Have you ever been told that kindness is a virtue? That being kind will bring you happiness, success, and fulfillment. Well, I'm here to tell you that kindness can actually ruin your life. Yes, you heard me right. Kindness can be your downfall. Let me explain how. First, when you're too kind, people start to take advantage of you.
That's true.
They see your kindness as a weakness.
That's true.
And they'll exploit it for their own gain.
That's also true.
They'll ask for favors, borrow money, and expect you to drop everything to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're kind, you'll say yes, even when it's inconvenient or detrimental to your own well-being. You'll find yourself stretched thin, exhausted, and resentful, all because you couldn't say no. I've seen it happen time and time again. People who are too kind end up being taken for granted.
So true.
They're the ones who are always there for others, but when they need help themselves, no one is around. They give and give until they have nothing left to give, and then they're left alone and empty. But it's not just about being taken advantage of. When you're too kind, you also miss out on opportunities to stand up for yourself and assert your own needs.
So true.
You're so busy putting others first that you forget about your own dreams and goals. You sacrifice your own happiness for the sake of others, and in the end, you're left with nothing but regrets.
So true.
Second, kindness can make you a pushover. When you're always putting others' needs before your own, you send a message that your own needs don't matter. People will start to expect you to agree with them, to go along with their plans, and to never rock the boat. They'll see you as someone who can be easily manipulated and controlled. And when you do try to assert yourself, people will be shocked and offended. They'll accuse you of being selfish or unkind, because they've come to expect you to always put their needs first. They'll guilt trip you into submission, and you'll find yourself right back where you started a doormat for others to walk all over.
So true.
I know it's hard to break out of this pattern. It feels good to be liked and appreciated, and it's tempting to keep doing what others expect of you.
Yep.
But in the long run, it's not sustainable. You'll end up feeling resentful, unfulfilled, and even angry. You'll start to question why you're always the one making sacrifices, and you'll wonder what your life would be like if you put yourself first for once. Third, kindness can hold you back from success. In today's cutthroat world, nice guys often finish last. To get ahead, you need to be assertive, competitive, and sometimes even ruthless. You
And real quick disclaimer, I think that applies to women as well. Nice people often finish last. I just want to make that point.
need to be willing to take risks, to make tough decisions, and to put your own interests first. But when you're too kind, you're often hesitant to do these things. You don't want to step on anyone's toes or hurt anyone's feelings. You don't want to be seen as aggressive or selfish. So you hold back, you play it safe, and you miss out on opportunities to advance your career or achieve your goals. I've seen so many talented, hard-working people get passed over for promotions or big breaks because they were too nice. They didn't want to rock the boat or ruffle any feathers, so they stayed quiet and let others take the credit. They didn't want to be seen as cutthroat or competitive, so they didn't go after what they really wanted. But here's the thing, success isn't handed out based on who's the nicest. It's earned through hard work, determination, and a willingness to take risks. If you're always putting others first and sacrificing your own ambitions, you'll never reach your full potential.
So true.
You'll always be held back by your own kindness. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, kindness can prevent you from being honest and authentic. When you're too focused on being kind and not hurting anyone's feelings, you start to censor yourself.
I'm going to pause for a second. This next part is so important to listen to. This is so true. This is something I dealt with early in my life, and I'm going to talk about more of that in the end. But this next part is so true, so let's listen in.
You hold back your true thoughts and opinions, and you present a watered-down version of yourself to the world.
True.
But here's the thing people can sense when you're not being genuine. They can tell when you're holding back or sugarcoating the truth. And over time, they start to lose trust in you. They start to wonder what you really think and feel, and they question whether they can rely on you to be honest with them.
Wow, that's not a true point. I mean, think about it. If you know a person just being too kind and not expressing their true feelings, I mean, let's face it, you do kind of lose trust because you're kind of like, well, wait a second, how can I go through life with you? How can I go to war with you? How can I be in a relationship with you, or be in a business with you, or work alongside with you, or accomplish a task or a goal or whatever that might be if you hold in your feelings? And let's face it, people, life is hard, it's challenging, and there's difficult people and difficult situations that come in our lives, and we need people to be good communicators and tell us how they're feeling. I mean, I run a business, and I'd rather have an employee just confront me and say, hey, your policy sucks, or the way you do this is terrible, or this person I'm working with is a piece of work. I'd rather, I mean, it's uncomfortable, you don't ever want to hear it, but I'd rather have the person approach me than to sit there and hold it all in, and then me not knowing how I should grow and change the company, right? I mean, naturally, I'd rather just have you tell me how you feel. Again, it's never fun to hear it, but I'd rather get a little uncomfortable and hash something out than to have someone just stewing on something all the time and they never communicate it. And because then what's going to happen is that person's going to be unhappy, they're going to be resentful, or God forbid one day they might even just blow up, or they might just quit out of the blue and like, well, why did you quit? You didn't even give me a chance to like work with you or fix you. And I've had that happen once or twice. It's like, well, why didn't you just tell me, So this is a very, very important thing, people. As we go through life, we have to communicate our feelings. I struggled with this early on in my life, in my teens and some of my 20s, because a lot of it had to do with the way I was raised and the pecking order and just different dynamics in the family. And I don't want to get into all that because that's just a big, huge conversation. But I just want to touch on the general points of a lot of us probably go through this, that way we're raised. If we weren't, I've actually read other books on this, if we weren't affirmed in our feelings or taught to communicate or taught that we matter, a person can become very resentful and start to hate themselves. And when a person gets like that, the only way they know how to kind of fit in or be liked is to be kind. And it's you can see where that can become a detriment to that individual. It's like, well, if you're a person who doesn't love yourself, well, yeah, you kind of, oh, I'll just be kind to everyone and they'll kind of like me. That's not always true. I also want to be clear too, and I'm going to talk about this in closing remarks. I'm not saying be rude or be mean, and he's going to talk about this a little bit more. I'm not saying be brash or just be ignorant to people. Always be kind. I believe in opening doors. I believe in being polite to people. I believe in listening to people. But that doesn't mean I'm going to sacrifice my own feelings to basically placate another person. You see what I mean? So we'll keep watching here, but I just want to touch on some of those points. We'll keep going here.
Moreover, when you're constantly suppressing your true self in the name of kindness, you start to lose touch with who you really are.
So true.
You become disconnected from your own thoughts,
That's
feelings,
so
and desires.
Mm-hmm.
You start to feel like a fraud, like you're living someone else's life instead of your own. And that's no way to live. It's exhausting, unfulfilling, and ultimately unsustainable.
So true.
You can't be truly happy or successful if you're not being true to yourself. You
That's
can't
true.
build deep, meaningful relationships if you're not being honest and authentic. So what's the solution? How can you avoid the pitfalls of kindness while still being a good person? The answer is simple balance. You need to find a way to be kind and compassionate while also setting boundaries and taking care of yourself.
That's right.
That means learning to say no when you need to, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. It means speaking up for yourself and asserting your own needs and desires, even if it means ruffling a few feathers.
So I'm going to pause for a second. He gets into the second part of it. How do you break the cycle of being kind? And he talks about bringing balance, which is so true. Be kind and compassionate, but also stand up for yourself. And this is the point, people. You have to, if you are a person who struggled with this, which I did at early parts of my life, you have to start a process, because like he said, he goes on to say that because if you're just a pressure cooker and you build up and then one day you snap, well, then that's not good either, because then you're going to snap on someone and they're going to be like, whoa, they're going to perceive you as hostile and aggressive and they're going to be offended, which it didn't have to come to that. You have to start a process of little steps. I've often said that, what's the old saying? Tremors prevent earthquakes. My old grade school teacher used to always say that tremors prevent earthquakes. Sometimes you just have to ruffle a few feathers. Say no. You don't have to be hostile or nasty or anything like that or snappy. You could just say, look, this isn't working for me. I can't do that. And I think most importantly, when you start that process of, if someone's asked you to do something at work and it's just upsetting you, say, you know what? I understand why you want me to do this, but I have to say no. And I think the most important thing is you have to live with that decision. Because if you just are always afraid to do that, you're never going to break that cycle. But if you start little processes, no, I can't, I won't do that, just little things like that, you have to let that other person hear that, and you have to let it marinate, and you have to let it take its course. And they might not like it, they might say something. Be prepared for, because remember, they're used to you being so kind. So when you do finally kind of assert yourself a little bit, there's going to be a little kickback. They're going to maybe insult you, say, oh, you call yourself a good person, you're supposed to, I thought you were going to help me. Hey, look, you know what, I have to do this for myself. You might have to, they might say something back, and here's the point, people, it's okay if they do. It is okay if they do. I heard a business coach last year say something like, I don't remember exactly how he said it. He goes, but I'd rather deal with the uncomfortability of two people clashing and actually maybe getting to a resolution than never have to broach it at all and never getting that solution. So you have to just step out of your comfort zone a little bit and just start to say no a little bit here and there. And then most importantly, live with the consequences. Because once that person does say their comment, remember, there'll always be a tomorrow. There will always be a tomorrow. There's something you said about putting it out there, making the statement, letting it marinate. Let that person say something, but then just give it a little time. Because something uniquely happens in human psychology. When you finally assert that, there's a time, remember, time always just does things. Time is a fascinating thing. 1 day, 2 day, a week, a month. Once that new precedent is set, look, you might be surprised what that person might think of you. They might go, yeah, I did kind of fire back at them, but you know what? A week later, they might go, that person is probably right. I was probably putting too much workload on them. They were right to tell me that. And you never know. They might even walk up to you and say, hey, I respect you now, or I understand your perspective now. They might not say it right away, but I've actually had situations play out where I've communicated things. People are very uncomfortable and people got a little nasty back. But later on, they kind of came up to me and said, you know what? Maybe someone else told them the same thing, or maybe they dealt with some other type of situation that they were putting on you that they felt themselves, and they might come up to you and say, you're right, I was doing that wrong, I was asking too much of you. So just the point is, people, never ever be afraid to start that process of saying no or standing up for yourself, because as C.S. Lewis says here, because once you start that process, it's the beginning of a new you. I believe I'm a person who's been through this. I've been liberated in this place of my life because I was kind of an approval seeker early on in my life. And again, I can't go into the whole backdrop of my life and my upbringing and the dynamics and all that stuff. I can't. There's a lot to go there. But the point is this: I was an approval seeker a period of my life, and I was an overly kind person who put myself out for people and sacrificed a lot of things, and only to get nothing in return. He's going to keep talking about some of those things in the future, but just the point is, people start a process and let whatever is going to be, because it's going to be the beginning of a new you, and you're going to start to love and respect yourself, and it's how you're going to love yourself and be the better version of yourself and form better relationships. So we'll keep watching here.
It means being honest and authentic, even if it means having difficult conversations or facing some conflict.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, I know. It takes practice and courage to break out of the pattern of overkindness.
Yes, it does.
But trust me, it's...
Sorry. I don't like these commercials, but we'll have to just deal with them here. I'll skip this here. So...
When you learn to balance kindness with self-care and authenticity, you'll be amazed at how much better your life becomes.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have more energy and enthusiasm for the things that matter to you.
So true.
You'll build deeper, more meaningful relationships with people who truly value and respect you.
That's so true.
You'll achieve more success and fulfillment in your career and personal life.
So true.
And most importantly, you'll feel more at peace with yourself and the world around you.
And that's the most important thing.
So don't let kindness ruin your life. Learn to be kind in a way that nurtures and supports your own well-being. Set boundaries, speak your truth, and take care of yourself first.
So true.
Because at the end of the day, the greatest kindness you can show to the world is to be the best, most authentic version of yourself. And
Wow.
That, my friends, is how kindness can ruin your life if you're not careful. But it doesn't have to be that way. With a little wisdom and a lot of courage, you can learn to be kind in a way that empowers and uplifts you.
Mm-hmm.
So go out there and be kind, but remember to be kind to yourself first. Because when you do that, everything else will fall into place. Let me share a personal story with you. When I was younger, I used to be the epitome of kindness. I would go out of my way to help others, even if it meant sacrificing my own time, energy, and resources. I thought that being kind would make me happy and fulfilled, but instead it left me feeling drained and resentful. I remember one particular instance where a friend asked me to help them move. I had my own plans that weekend, but I didn't want to let them down. So I canceled my plans and spent the entire weekend lugging heavy boxes and furniture up and down stairs. By the end of it, I was exhausted and sore, and I felt like I had wasted my precious free time. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that my friend didn't even seem particularly grateful. They thanked me briefly, but then they went on with their life as if nothing had happened.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there. This is so ironic because a good friend of mine, very close friend of mine, about 5-6 years ago, went through the exact same thing. He had his own plans. He was asked to do a move way in the middle of Illinois. Not only it wasn't even a local move, he had to drive an ungodly distance just to get to this place. And what's even worse, the people who asked him to move didn't even have the right amount of bodies. You wouldn't even mind helping someone move if they put in the extra effort and they had 2 or 3 of their big men there to help, and at least you're part of a team and an effort. You feel part of something. He said the one brother-in-law was like drunk and hungover, didn't even show up. I mean, how disrespected would you feel? So let me get this straight. I'm going to help you and your own family doesn't even show up. I mean, what a slap in the face. And then the other guy who showed up was kind of this small, scrawny guy, didn't have any muscles. He ended up doing all the heavy lifting. They're lifting like dressers and all this bedding and all. It was like the really treacherous move. And then to top it off, he got to the house and nothing was even packed. They asked him to pack and stuff. I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, these people are just so blatantly disrespectful. And then to top it off, at the end, they barely even fed him. They gave him some cheap food, and they just were unappreciative. You wouldn't even mind if they said, "Hey, you're special. Here's a $50 gift card, and let me put out some chicken or some pizza for you and make you feel like a king for a minute or something." Like, they didn't even do that for him, So, it's so ironic that he brought up that move. And by the way, we all are asked to move or have most of our lifetimes, we're going to either be asked to move or we're going to ask friends to move. Moving is kind of a big thing. I've had a lot of things play out in my life with moves, whether it's family or friends, where a lot kind of comes out. It's like you find out who your true friends are. I mean, I'm not saying you should never help a person move, but just make sure that they appreciate you. Make sure that there's other bodies there. Like I helped my sister move a couple of years ago, and you know what? She had 6 or 7 guys there, and it was a group effort, and she put a lot of effort, and she made, kind of put a committee on it, and I felt appreciated because there was actually like a plan, a strategy, and I didn't feel like I was the only one doing things. Like I did some of the plumbing, I had to reconnect her washer and dryer, and she thanked me for that. And then she had the other guys do different things, and at least there was at least a sense of, hey, I don't want to put all the burden on you. I just need you as a pair of hands, and you do your role, and that's fine. You love to help. And she asked me ahead of time, and she, and there was just I felt a sense of respect, and there was some communication there. And that's a good thing. I believe in being kind and helping people, but just make sure that when people are doing things with you, that they're looking out for you a little bit. There's nothing wrong with asking a friend to move. Just make sure that it's reasonable and fair, and you show that person a sense of gratitude and say, look them in the eye, say thank you for coming, and greet them at the door. Hey, how you doing? Can I offer you something to drink? How you feeling today? How's life? Great. Okay, let's get moving here. And then at the end, hey, let me feed you and kick back with you for a half hour and talk about life. Like, make that person feel a little appreciated, and don't put these ungodly burdens on people, like lifting pianos and all this crazy stuff like that. You need to hire a professional for stuff like that. And so, I mean, this is just part of it, people. It's just common level decency and etiquette. I mean, being kind is a great thing, but just make sure that it's fair and it's balanced, like he says. Like, just make sure you're being appreciated. And by the way, if that person ultimately doesn't appreciate you, never help them again. And even as a Christian, I have no problem saying, don't help them again. Or in some rare event that you might even consider it, make sure you communicate your feelings. If a person asks you for a favor again, don't be afraid to express your feelings. Hey, look, you know what? I did something for you before. I might consider helping you again, but let me tell you how I felt previously. I drove an ungodly amount of time. Your other people didn't even show up for the move. You put immense burdens on me. I'm not even part of your family. Your own family let you down. You didn't even acknowledge that. You didn't even say you're sorry. You didn't compensate for that in any way. Pour out to people to say, look, these are my exact feelings. And now if you want me to do this next favor, tell me how you feel. Now, if that person responds, say, hey, I'm deeply sorry. That'll never happen again. For this next favor, I'm going to do it differently. Okay, then you can consider doing another favor. But if they don't acknowledge any of that and they just dismiss you and don't acknowledge your feelings, don't help them. Just straight up draw the line. Even as a Christian, don't help them. I've had to draw lines and offend people, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm not afraid to offend people anymore because you ultimately offended me. And if you want to call me out for being a Christian, well, where's your godliness? Where's your sense of decency? Even if you're a Christian or not, I mean, you still have a burden to humanity and society yourself. Where's your decency? Why aren't you going out of your way? So, don't be afraid to defend yourself a little bit if someone try to press back and call you out on things like that. So I just want to point some of those things out here. We're going to keep pressing, moving forward here.
Meanwhile, I was left feeling used and unappreciated. That experience was a wake-up call for me.
Yeah, it should be.
I realized that I had been so focused on being kind to others that I had neglected to be kind to myself. I had put everyone else's needs before my own, and as a result, I was burning out.
Mm-hmm.
From that moment on, I started to make a conscious effort to balance my kindness with self-care. I started saying no to requests that didn't align with my own priorities and values.
There you go.
I started setting boundaries with people who tried to take advantage of my kindness.
Yep.
And I started being more honest and authentic in my interactions with others. It wasn't easy at first. I felt guilty and selfish for putting my own needs first.
You might.
I worried that people would think I was unkind or uncaring.
Mm-hmm.
But as I continued to practice this new way of being, I started to see the benefits. I had more energy and enthusiasm for the things that mattered to me. I felt more confident and self-assured in my interactions with others. And perhaps most importantly, I started attracting people into my life who appreciated and respected me for who I truly was.
There you go.
One of the biggest lessons I learned through this process was the importance of setting boundaries. I realized that being kind didn't mean saying yes to everything and everyone. In fact, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to say no.
So true. You have to be
When you set
kind,
boundaries,
right?
You're communicating to others what you will and will not tolerate.
That's so true.
You're telling them that you value yourself and your own needs.
Amen.
And that you expect to be treated with respect.
Saving on your education should...
Another commercial here. Boy, is this the truth. Let me go back to this here.
And when you do that, you create space for healthier, more balanced relationships in your life.
Exactly.
Of course, setting boundaries isn't always easy. It can be uncomfortable and even scary at times.
Sure.
But the more you practice it, the easier it becomes.
Exactly.
And the payoff is well worth the effort. Another important lesson I learned was the power of authenticity. When you're too focused on being kind and pleasing others, it's easy to lose sight of who you really are. You start to mold yourself into what you think others want you to be,
So true.
rather than being true to yourself.
There you go.
But here's the thing people can sense when you're not being genuine. They can tell when you're holding back or pretending to be someone you're not.
Exactly.
And over time, that lack of authenticity can erode trust and connection in your relationships.
Yes, it can.
On the other hand, when you're honest and authentic, you create space for real, meaningful connection.
Exactly. I'm going to pause for a second. Look, over time, the people we grow to love and respect are not always the pushovers or the sweetest, kindest people. My father passed away. I mean, we all cried at his wake. I mean, my father was not the kindest and sweetest man, but he had his principles and he had his truths and he had his beliefs. I'm not here to say he was the greatest man in the world. He had his flaws, and God bless him. He had a tough life, but the point is like people, you have to live your life with a set of personal beliefs and values that are so true to your heart and your mind and your spirit that you have to make that your personal brand. These are my views. These are my principles. These are my convictions. And I held a lot of that in for a long time. And that's why over time, a lot of those, that's why I found myself, like, I didn't realize it at the time, but in my subconscious, I found myself I would hang out at bars and I had very superficial relationships with people. I was involved in 3 or 4 major, social circles where I always was around people and just, I always felt the need to get their approval and be liked. And I'm not saying all that's terrible. Like, we all do things when we're younger, we socialize. But I think over time, I realized, like, when real push came to shove, like even moves, like helping someone move, that actually did confront me a couple times, or needing a loan or needing a love and support, or someone to visit me at a hospital. Like, I mean, I've had a lot of these moments of truth in my life, and you do kind of come to the conclusion, like, wow, like, who even are my real friends and why do I hang with these people? Now, I'm not saying everyone that I knew was a bad guy, but I do kind of blame myself a lot, because I wish in my teens and early 20s especially, I should have been more assertive with myself. I wish I would have been more clear, like, I don't like that, I don't want that, I'm not going to do that, because I did a lot of things for a lot of people. I worked in the plumbing industry where people pushed me around a lot. I mean, I worked for companies that I was working 45, 50 hours a week and never got the overtime pay, and just kind of let it go because, hey, I was learning the trade, and I was like, I just didn't stand for my principles, and I just got pushed around and used a lot. And we all, in some sense, go through this. I think a lot of us do anyway. But over time, I just kind of got sick and tired of being sick and tired. There's just there's a new me that kind of eventually emerged. And like he said, it started with, you know, um, standing up for yourself and having those difficult conversations. Part of life is having difficult conversations. Someone in my family recently I was talking to had to have a very difficult conversation with someone, and the person wanted to stay with her, and there was just some toxic things happening, and it was starting to become a detriment to her well-being. And even though she wanted to help this girl, but she had to have a tough conversation with her. And a week later, she's like, I'm so at peace. I'm so glad I did that. That's the point. You got to start that process, because a couple of times early in my life, I exploded on people and I just went off, and that's not healthy either. I mean, sometimes you might have to raise your voice. It happens, but I've learned, like my teacher said, tremors prevent earthquakes. I always loved that line. I always kept that word of wisdom. It's so true. It's like, tremors prevent earthquakes. Just say no subtly, or even a little firmly, but just say it early and say it often, because if you let it build up and build up, you're just going to explode. But to his point, you will, over time, when I started getting better at this, I did start to develop better relationships with friends. I have friends now. I have a good 8 or 10 people that are in my life that are just very good and close friends, and they know who I am, and I know who they are, and I'm not afraid to say, look, I don't want that, or that bothers me, or that hurts me, or that upsets me. And you know what? People will learn to love you. They might not always like in the beginning. It might be a little uncomfortable, but they might say, wow, I respect this person for what they're telling me. And I like what he's saying here. And this hit me as I was watching this video this morning. Like, yeah, you will develop better relationships. You really will. So we'll keep watching here.
You allow others to see the real you, flaws and all.
Yep.
And when you do that, you build deeper, more intimate relationships based on trust and mutual understanding.
So true.
Of course, being authentic doesn't mean being rude or insensitive.
Agreed.
It's important to balance honesty with tact and compassion. But it does mean speaking your truth even when it's difficult or uncomfortable. Ultimately, the key to avoiding the pitfalls of kindness is to find a balance between taking care of others and taking care of yourself. It's about learning to be kind in a way that feels authentic and sustainable rather than draining and depleting. And the good news is, when you do that, everyone benefits. When you take care of yourself first, you have more energy and resources to give to others.
So true.
When you set healthy boundaries, you create space for more fulfilling and reciprocal relationships. And when you're honest and authentic, you inspire others to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're someone who struggles with being too kind for your own good, I encourage you to start small. Start by saying no to one request that doesn't align with your priorities.
Yep.
Start by setting one boundary with someone who tends to take advantage of your kindness.
Yep.
Start by being honest about one thing that you've been holding back. And as you continue to practice these new ways of being, be patient with yourself. Remember that change takes time and there will be moments of discomfort and even resistance along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But trust that by being kind to yourself first, you're ultimately being kind to everyone else in your life as well.
Yeah.
Because here's the truth: the world needs more kindness, but it also needs more people who are willing to be kind to themselves.
That's so true.
It needs more people who are willing to set boundaries, speak their truth, and take care of their own needs. And when we all start doing that, we create a ripple effect of positive change that extends far beyond ourselves. So go out there and be kind, but remember to be kind to yourself first.
So true.
Remember that your own needs and desires matter just as much as anyone else's. And remember that by taking care of yourself, you're ultimately taking care of the world around you as well.
It's so true.
And if you ever find yourself feeling guilty or selfish for putting yourself first, just remember this: the greatest gift you can give to the world is a happy, healthy, authentic version of yourself.
So true.
So don't be afraid to prioritize your own well-being, even if it means ruffling a few feathers along the way. Because at the end of the day, kindness isn't about being perfect or pleasing everyone around you. It's about being true to yourself and treating others with compassion and respect. And when you learn to balance those two things, you'll find that kindness becomes a source of strength and empowerment rather than a burden or a weakness. So let's all commit to being kind in a way that feels authentic and sustainable. Let's set boundaries, speak our truth, and take care of ourselves first.
So true.
And let's trust that by doing so, we're creating a world that is kinder, more compassionate, and more connected than ever before. Thank you for listening to my story and my thoughts on this topic. I hope that my words have resonated with you in some way, and that you'll take them to heart as you navigate your own journey with kindness. Remember, you matter just as much as anyone else, and your own needs and desires are valid and important. So be kind to yourself, and watch as that kindness ripples out into the world around you.
Great words. Great words. I'm gonna shift here. So look, people, that was the great C.S. Lewis. I hope you enjoyed him. I love C.S. Lewis. He's such a great thinker. He's deep in my Christian theology so much over the years, and but as you could tell, Christian or non-Christian, his logic and his thinking, it can apply to all of us. And there's just so much there that I felt the need to put out this morning. Like I said, I mean, I think a lot of us, especially in the old school, those people raised in the 50s and things like that, I mean, there's just a lot of there was a lot of people, I don't like this term, like when you see someone being abused or pushed around and people celebrate that, like, oh, that person is such a saint for what they tolerate. I don't like that term. I think that's really ridiculous, and it's not a virtue to tolerate abuse. It's really not. I used to think that early in my life. I know some people, my friends and family, and just people that I knew in my life, names I won't mention right now, but like where that person would be abused by their spouse, you know, and then you'd hear people say, oh, that person is such a saint. They'll have such a special seat in heaven for what they went through. Well, that might be true. It might be true. That doesn't mean it always has to be that way all the time. It's not a virtue, people, to tolerate abuse. It's really not. It took me years to break that thinking. I was raised around that type of mentality, which was sad. And that's an area of my life that I had a generational kind of a cycle that I had to break in my own mind. And people, it's not a virtue to tolerate abuse. You know, if you're in an abusive environment, I don't care if it's work, personal relationship, marriage, business relationship, whatever it might be, you need to get out of it. You just need to get out of it. Um, and you shouldn't tolerate it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't work through things and try your best to get counseling or whatever that might be. Try everything you can to make it better. But if it ultimately isn't changing, you need to get out of it. And I learned a lot about that. I don't tolerate anyone abusing me. Um, and I also don't tolerate people. Just I don't tolerate living oppressed. I had a lot of oppression in my life earlier on in my life because of the family dynamics and things that I eventually carried with me as I left home. And when I got into the workplace and socializing early on in my life, I realized I had some patterns where I allowed those things to happen. But again, like you said, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and at some point and over time I had to stand up for myself, and there were some tough moments, some tough moments for me. I had to raise my voice and yell and shout a few times, and I had to get physical a few times. I'm not gonna lie, I've had to do it. And because at some point, we all have to lay in bed with ourselves, and we all have to look ourselves in the mirror every morning, and like C.S. Lewis says, you want to be the best version of yourself. And being kind is again, I think there's a lot of misnomers and misconception of being kind. I do believe in being kind. I believe in holding doors open for people. I believe in smiling and greeting people, and allow. I'm in traffic. I'll be the first one to put my hand out and say, no, you go first, and things like that. I think there's nothing wrong with that. Listening to people and being compassionate and being sensitive for those around me. But there's a fine line between that and being a pushover and let people take advantage of you. So that said, I'm just going to close out here. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to continue to do these overviews. I love these influencers, C.S. Lewis especially. He's one of my favorites. He's got some great stuff on just personal help, self-help, and of course, Christian theology. But yeah, I just want to put this out there. So, people, like, be kind, but just most importantly, be kind to yourself. I think that's the catch. Be kind, yes, but be kind to yourself. Love yourself. Set your boundaries, learn how to say no. And then, like he said, you will develop infinitely more better relationships, and people will learn to respect you. And guess what, people, you might lose a few people along the way. I've lost a few people that I wanted to be friends with and I wanted to like, and things like that. But ultimately, people don't want to respect you for who you are, and they don't want to respect your boundaries and your principles. And it's time to separate. I've lost a handful of people in my life, friends, associates, and things like that, relationship stuff. But you know what? You got to do it. And you know what? Like I've always said, there's a day after tomorrow, and you have to do what you have to do. Because I think when you do that, you will learn to love yourself. But most importantly, as you pursue life, as you go through life, you will take those lessons, and you will know who you are. Remember, you're the only person who has to sleep with yourself at night. I mean, you have to even if you are in a relationship or not. I mean, you have to lay your head in when you put your pillow in the bed at night. You have to know yourself and know who you are. And you know what? As you set these boundaries and as you get better and stronger, you learn to love yourself more. And it's only going to help you as you progress in life, as you enter relationships, personal and business and social and whatever that might be, work relationships. You have to draw those boundaries, and you will get better. And you know what? I'll be honest. I feel excited when I stand up for myself because I know what it's doing for my future. I know what it's doing for other people's future. I love setting these boundaries because it's like, this new precedent is now here. And I'm encouraged and excited about what this is going to do for my life and the relationship and the people around me. So embrace it, people. Do not be afraid to stand up for yourself. It's one of the most important things you will do. And of course, continue to love others and be kind. So that's my message for today. I hope you got a lot out of this. Feel free to make any comments you want. Click like if you got something from this, and of course share this with anyone who you think might need to hear this, because I think there's some very, very valuable lessons to be learned. Thank you all so very much. I appreciate you all. I look forward to seeing you again, and of course, God bless you.